Well, quite a round of applause as he went down that ramp and now settles in. We'll know pretty quickly, or he'll know pretty quickly, how well he's going. The USA flag is on the left. Lance Armstrong is back in the Tour de France. Anything significant? He wears number 22. He's won 22 stages in the past.
Armstrong now getting into the crowd, and if there's any doubt, Phil, whether or not these people support him, I think you can understand here, because they are cheering on this man who has won the Tour de France so far on 7 separate occasions.
They have waited to see this moment. We've met so many people here. Here's the time check anyway. Let's see if they stop the clock. It's way up, way up. It's going to be 11:47, 11:39, they say, is the time. We wait for confirmation. It's confirmed, I think. So Lance Armstrong, who said he was going to make a steady start, seems to have dropped in with the best time, which is confirmed at 11 minutes and 39.
He was 20 seconds up at half distance. He's going to be more than that at final distance.
Little bit of a speed wobble, that's how much. Look at his face. Lance Armstrong, 7 times a winner of the Tour de France. 4 years ago was the last time. He's been out of the sport. He's heading for the best time as he now lines up. He can see the finishing line. He's just gone over 20 minutes. He's slowed a little bit here on Montfort, but he's kicking for the line. He's looking for 20:42, and he's going to beat that. He hits the line, 20:12. He gets the best time, but he did clearly slow on that second half.
The best time for Armstrong then, but not for long. He was quickly overtaken by several riders, including a couple of teammates, Levi Leipheimer and Andreas Kloeden. Kloeden's was still the best time, with all the favourites out on the course. Alberto Contador, Bradley Wiggins and Fabian Cancellara, though, were all going well.
Wiggins has got a good time here, Phil.
Wiggins is heading in. Is he going to reshape the leaderboard? He should get out of the saddle and sprint. Well, it's not easy to do, but look at the time of Kloeden, and Wiggins is going to be very, very close to best time. Take a look at Wiggins' face here, the Olympic champion. He's going to be a good road racing rider now. He hits the line, best time, 19:51 by 3 seconds when they round it up. Now let's get back to Cancellara. This is unbelievable. And look at that. Menchov is struggling now. He won't believe this. Remember, they started 1 minute and 30 seconds apart. And Cancellara pushes on for the finish. He's looking to beat the time of Bradley Wiggins of 19:51. This is when he sees the clock. This is when he goes for the gears, knocks it up a cog, and then puts his head down and drives. He is sprinting for the line. The former world champion, the Olympic champion, and the best time. And what a time that is, 19:32.
And a massive slaughtering of everybody else's time, almost 20 seconds faster than everybody else.
Now what has Alberto Contador done? He's 10 seconds away from the time, 8:07. It's going away from him. He won't win. Cancellara has flown off the mountain like an eagle. And now Alberto Contador is racing for second place here. And he's going to have to go well, otherwise he'll be behind Bradley Wiggins as well. But this is still, nonetheless, a great ride by Alberto Contador, who won the Tour in 2007. There's the time he's shooting at of Wiggins, and he's just got inside Bradley Wiggins. Contador is second. Is he now the leader of Astana? He certainly laid claim to that. Just gone under 5 kilometres to go, and this young man has held them off for a couple of kilometres, but it's all over now. Ignatiev is swept aside by Team Columbia. HCT, we're down back to the sprinters.
Well, the sprinters there's 2 lines of sprinters on the left in the yellow, white and black. It's Team Columbia, HTC, the team of Mark Cavendish. In the pale blue and white over to the right-hand side, that is Team Milram. Thereafter, Gerard Schleck. None of the other big teams of the sprinters have yet got themselves organised. I'm looking, and I've just spotted the red, yellow and black jersey of the champion of Belgium. Right in the middle, moving and barging his way through there, is big Tom Boonen.
Tom Boonen, there he is in the black top to his brand new national title jersey. He won it a week to go today for the first time, which is amazing because he's been a great bike rider out of Belgium. The line moving smoothly up on the yellow side. That's Team Columbia. The last man is Mark Cavendish. If you can't recognise Mark, try his number. It's 71. Milram are trying to guide through Gerald Cholik, his ex-teammate. Lamprey are getting in on the act now because they've got Daniela Benarte. They are the mauve and blue teams. This this is going to be a great battle. Bert Grabsch is also in there as well, the world road race champion.
But Millar have got control on the front end of the main field for the moment, but once they get closer to the finish, you may well start to see the acceleration coming from Team Colombia. There's George Hincapie in the yellow and white sunglasses, just popping over the top, making sure he keeps his man Mark Cavendish out of danger, out of any possibility of being caught in an incident and slipping back down through the main field, because if you have to put your brakes on at this point in the race at 3 kilometres to go, you'll go from 5th position to 55th position and lose all chances of winning the bike race. Look how close everybody's now starting to get together inside of 3 kilometres to go. It's still Milram have got the control at the front end of the main field, but over on the left there's a new line starting to come up, and that's the team that was brought in as a wild card. That's Team Skill Shimano.
Well, they're going to have a little bit of luck and help if they're going to break through this lot right now. Team Milran seem to me as though they feel they've got the man on the team today. Michael Rogers is still in there as well. Milram and Team Colombia have got it, and you're right about Skill Shimano, Paul. They are trying to break into this. They have got the fast finishers, but people like Kenny Van Hummel, who's had a few wins this year, 4 indeed. Well, now we're losing the teammates now. They make the effort as fast as they can. The reason they keep the speed up is to stop the movement off the front of the pack. But you can only go so far. Amazingly, these guys are human. They get tired. When they get tired, they have to get out the way.
It's amazing that a rider can just give himself complete and utter devotion for his teammate, who he knows is sitting behind, and that's why a guy can ride on the front for around about 200-300 meters at 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. And yes, at 2 kilometers to go, once you are done, you just swing off and leave it up to somebody else. Now it's Colombia HCT on the front now, getting control once more. George Hincapie's up into about 4th position. Behind him, I would predict it's Mark Renshaw. Right. Behind Mark Renshaw, it's going to be Mark Cavendish.
The rush coming on the left again. Looks like Boyd Telecom are trying to break in on this too. The French setup. You can see the flashes on the arms there of Gerald Torek, and they're bumping and barging. That's Tyler Farrar being brought to the front, off to the right of our picture in those orange jerseys. The American. Now look at the anxious face of Cavendish. This is where you've got to be careful. This is about just over 1 kilometre out from the finish. That's the big split. Now it's eyes down for a big straight run in here as it all comes together on the other side of the roundabout. Chance for a reshuffle, and Michael Rogers has got control at the front now. Team Garmin, but Farrar is here, and Julian Dean too.
That's Julian Dean right in front of Farrar in the orange. Little bouncy and bargy going there. Julian Dean now has decided he's going to move to the front and see if he can get his American teammate up into an ideal position. It's Julian Dean and Danny Pater going to try and lift up the pace, bumping and barging, trying to get onto the wheel of George Hincapie.
There was a nasty kick in the middle there that pushed Tom Bonan over the road, but he's corrected it now. Cholik is on his shoulder. They've gone extremely wide there, and I think some have gone off the course. They went straight on. They didn't make the right-hander. The police had to jump for it. Slight split in the peloton now, but this is the final lead-out. Cavendish sits 3rd wheel. This surely, Ferrari's tucked in on it. They have a little lead over the rest of the field. This is the bend they will come off. They will then see the line. It's Colombia, 1, 2, 3, the last lead-out from Mark Renshaw. This is a formality for the Isle of Man, and now Cavendish is Lords. The missile fires again. Nobody will get to him as he punts his head down. Tyler Farrar will ride in his slipstream, but now Cavendish is going to get his first win of the Tour 2009, and Tyler Farrar an excellent 2nd place.
What a run into the finish that was. A little bit of chaos with about 750 meters to go, but you see Team Colombia High Road, Phil, they never panicked at all. They kept control at the front end of the main field. That's why you've got to keep your men in the first 15 to 20 places. This man is going to be a great sprinter over the next 10 years or so. Mark Cavendish getting his 5th stage victory at the Tour de France. That record for Great Britain of 8, Phil, is looking very attainable in 2009. These bike riders are extremely alert. They're always looking up ahead of them as far as they can to see whether or not there's going to be any danger in the road. The High Road, Colombia High Road, picking up the pace. This is the place where you certainly don't want to be now, because in the next few kilometers you won't be able to move up to the front end of the main field. We've cranked the speed up from what was a little while ago only 35 to 40 kilometers an hour to now an average speed of probably closer to just inside of 50, slowed down a fraction because of these winds buffeting the riders. It's not the Mistral that they're facing up to here this afternoon. It's the wind, the crosswind in this part of the world known as the Tramontana. They really are putting their backs into this, Phil, and that's going to be, there's a little bit of chaos going to come at the back, and I would say if I was riding in about 15th to 20th position here, I would want to open up a second echelon.
See the splits, Paul, right behind. This is a crucial change of direction this time. It was the UK flag that was fine, the Union Jack ripping across the course that indicated they just turned into a crosswind, and now the team time trial has arrived a day early. This is Team Columbia HTC. They realise they've got a split, and now you see the dangers because Cancellara was ready. He's up here.
I knew this was going to happen in these crosswinds, and you see already this
Look at the echelons,
this is
the bottom.
echelons. They're a diagonal line of riders and trying to shelter from the wind in a diagonal line across the road. And having a team like Team Columbia High Road HTC at the front doing that, they will not hold anything back at all. I would guess, Phil, that they've got all 9 riders here. Armstrong is in this split.
Hincapie is the man who's realised what they've got. I think it's a little bit of a shame. We've just swept around the corner. The wind will reduce its pressure from across the course, and it might cause the gap to close down a little bit. But they are now taking benefit from this, and Cavendish is in there. But this is now not a race for Cavendish. This is a race for certain riders to gain real time over the field. We've now got 2 races on the road to La Grande Motte.
I'm amazed that Armstrong had the nous not to miss that split, but one man, it appears to me, has missed the split from Team Astana, and I'm looking for number 21 to see if he's there now. They should have been looking after him. They should have been looking after Alberto Contador. 3 or 4 riders there from Team Skill, but this is a big split, and there will be serious alarm bells, Phil, ringing behind.
Well, I'd like the cameras to pull back now and see what damage is being done, because I think that Alberto Contador has missed the move here. Cancellara was ready for it. He was right at the front. Now, it takes a strong rider as well to stay in the front, but if you are fancying your chances, you would have known, because we've talked about it all day, that the winds down this ways rips the field apart. This is an excellent race again. Well, because of the split, Paul, there are the 4 riders underneath the American flag who, I'm afraid, have been shot down in flames by a peloton which is racing for real time now.
By the time the select group of 27 hit the run into La Grande Motte, their lead was over half a minute on the main field.
At 4.7 kilometres, the clock is still counting at the 5 kilometre banner for the chase here, and it's going to be about 34 seconds. But Paul, Astana, with 3 men in the breakaway, are still going to head up the team race in the lead tonight, because you work out the team by adding together the best 3 riders' finishing times of the day.
I think what's more important to them is the fact that they're moving Lance Armstrong up in the overall classification, but really the most sensible move was the move done by Team Columbia High Road. They really did bring a coup on here this afternoon. They're not going to slow down either, because they now realise they've got to keep this pressure on all the way to the finish. I sincerely believed as we go inside of 4 kilometres to go that the peloton were going to react violently and pull these men back. It's just an indication of the fact that there's 8 riders from one team in this breakaway, and I think that adds to the success.
We are 4 minutes from the finishing line in La Grande Motte. It's a headwind, long straight up to the finish, but there's no way in that 4 minutes can the field behind. There's Tom Bonen in the black, yellow and red jersey, champion of Belgium. Another day he's missed out in the sprint here because he missed out in the split. And more importantly, big riders missed out in the split. Sastre, Contador, Cadell Evans all missed a move. They're handing time to Lance Armstrong, to Michael Rogers, the important riders, and to Kim Kirkham particularly. And look at the back now. They're just being torn to shreds by the wind. They're at 4 kilometres. We're going to have 5 bunches finished today.
Well, that's the important thing you have to remember. I've said it so many times that a flat stage can always be a dangerous stage, because you don't have to go uphill to split a field. If you get a very strong crosswind, it can split the field to pieces, and that's what's happened here this afternoon. We have split it up in the crosswinds. That's why the riders were riding at the front end of the main field, taking lots of risks to make sure that they were in this first 15 or 20 positions. Alberto Contador has been caught out, but he's been caught out by his own teammate Lance Armstrong. But let's not forget, Phil, the Tour de France is 3 weeks long, but this is the first psychological battle, and things can completely and utterly change once we get into the mountains. But this has been fun to watch.
Contador is a great mountain climber, but maybe he lacks a little bit of experience, a little bit of expertise to ride these crosswinds. It's not his favourite style of bike racing, but those riders who can ride them know you can gain time. He was squeezing out seconds in a race that's still got 2.5+ weeks to go, but you never know. Remember Greg LeMond and Laurent Fignon? Greg LeMond won by 8 seconds, and these boys at the moment have got themselves 34.
34 seconds is what the clock will stop at if we were to stop the race right now, but we've still got a couple of kilometres to go to the finish. Still, everybody seems to be participating in the pacemaking at the front end of the pack. Mark Cavendish now is starting to get nervous. He realises he has to finish off after the job of work that's been done by his team, Team Columbia, High Road, HTC. They've done a great job of work for him, but he's got the pressure on his shoulders to make sure he finishes it off. And don't forget, there is still a very good sprinter in this group. Thor Hushovd, the god of thunder, is there, and he will be hoping to take advantage of a mistake by Mark Cavendish.
Well, in theory, it's only Hushovd who can even approach the speed of Mark Cavendish. But we've had 2 races for the last 20k, and these guys are going to be at the full limit of their effort right now. Whether Mark can lift it again, and he's got to come late to the line because he'll put his nose out. The wind is going to come from the left of the road and on his head as he makes the line. He's got to get it right.
Don't discount Fabian Cancellara. He's got in this race. He's had an easy ride. He's a strong bike rider, and if it's a sprint that goes out from a very long way, he could be the man to create the big surprise here this afternoon. Let's not forget, the last time he was leading the Tour de France in the yellow jersey on the road into Compiègne, he came round a zigzag corner, and all of a sudden the yellow jersey bolted out of a bunch sprint to get himself a great stage victory.
He doesn't have to win, of course, to keep his maillot jaune tonight. He just needs to finish with these riders. He'll be given the same time. No time bonuses given in the race this year, so he finishes with the riders. He keeps his maillot jaune. But second tonight, I think, will be Tony Martin. Third tonight, I think, will be Lance Armstrong. Tomorrow, it's the team time trial. Then what will happen? It looks like we're in 1 kilometre to go now. Skill Shimano won't go down without a fight as well. Cavendish has moved himself right up now. He's not got a lot of riders here, and there's an attack on right on the far side of the road. And I think that'll be probably Christophe Kern or Stefan Auger who's made the move as they try to bridge the gap here to the 1 Skill Shimano. This is going to be a tough one. Mark Renshaw, you've got to do something special here. Where are you, Mark? I'm right behind you. As they come up towards the finish, he's got to hold him late and then launch the attack because the headwind will spoil the fun. Mark has got to do something very special here and stay there as long as possible because Choling is getting up on his back wheel as well here. And Thor Hushovd is locked in onto the back of the missile. I think that Cavendish knows it. Now he's got to go up the left-hand side. Thor Hushovd going to use his massive strength to challenge Cavendish. It's going to be close, but I think Cav has done it. Yes, he's done it on the telephone. Mark Cavendish is unbelievable, and Thor Hushovd got second. 2 out of 2. Another 35 points on the green jersey competition. It's already looking pretty good.
It's looking extremely good. That was a handbook victory for Mark Cavendish there, Phil, as he came up to the line. But this is what's more important, I think, to everybody else. The time gap that the clock is going to stop at here. Romain Felu is coming up to get himself probably a 29th or 30th place. Stops the clock at 39 seconds.
Huge loss on a day like this. It's going to make the team time trial a battle for yellow now. Tomorrow, will Fabian Cancellara keep?
Well, the Astana multiple leaders were among the favourites for the team time trial, 39 kilometres out and back to the city of Montpellier. They'd recce'd the course thoroughly 2 weeks prior. Others hadn't, and this was the result. Dennis Menshoff of Rabobank was one of several fallers within a kilometre of the start on a technical course that was mined with dangerous corners.
Oh, and there's been a massive stack up here with Bouygues Telecom. They're all over the road here. The mechanics up alongside. Let's just have a look at this. Somebody's lost it. He's gone straight off the road, too fast around that corner.
This is the Australian bend, and the boys are all going to make it. No, they're not. There's another one gone over on the far side of the road.
Cadel Evans was another of the riders who needed to claw back time, but ended up losing it as his team waited for a man who crashed, only to drop him and finish with 7 riders anyway. Astana leading the team classification with the last to set off. Armstrong and company powered round the course in search of the 40 seconds that would give the American the yellow jersey.
We're coming up to 19.5 kilometres here. Now we're into the same minute, and as I said, they were locked and split by thousandths of a second only at the first check at 10 kilometres.
25.50 was the time set by Garmin Slipstream at that point, 19.5 kilometres, but the advantage could tilt towards Astana because they've got more riders. Yes, they've lost a couple, but they've got the firepower of Lance Armstrong, and they've got the firepower of Alberto Contador. Here's Garmin Slipstream in the finishing line.
Well, they've gained 23 seconds there in that second section. Now, what is Garmin going to deliver? It'll be a new best time here. Liquigas set the trend of 47.27. Garmin Slipstream are now in 46.47. They've done what they can do. That's the best time on the board, and they've done it virtually the whole way with just 5 riders.
Phil, I have just been doing some calculations here, and at the second time check, Lance Armstrong's team Astana have gone through 38 seconds faster than Team Saxo Bank. That puts Lance Armstrong 2 seconds away from taking the yellow jersey in the 2009 Tour de France.
And this is a man who was playing it down, saying it wasn't possible, nice to dream, etc. at the start this morning, but they've picked this pace up tremendously, because in just 9 kilometres between checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2, Astana picked up 23 seconds on the 5 riders of Garmin Slipstream.
Team Saxo Bank in the finishing straight.
We're looking at the maillot jaune, but is this the last time we'll see Cancellara in yellow? Astana have yet to finish, of course, and Fabian Cancellara is taking on the driving train himself. Spartacus just pumping those big thighs, doing what he does best, rider time trial. Look at the way they're trying to grab his back wheel, because it's the 5th man who will stop the clock, and he'll be gritting his teeth now to try and stay in with it. Garmin Slipstream are the best time in 46.47. That time was already gone. It would need to be 47.47 if Bradley Wiggins was to be the new leader of the Tour for Garmin. That hope I don't think will happen. We're into the 47th minute now, though, as again Cancellara leads all the way, stops the clock, 47.09, and that is the second best time. For the moment, he is still in the yellow jersey, Paul, but there's trouble a-coming.
There is certainly trouble a-coming, and it's coming in the shape of Team Astana. I've done the calculations already. Lance Armstrong and Team Astana, Phil, need to finish inside of 47 minutes and 49 seconds if Armstrong is to grab the yellow jersey tonight. Look at the power here of this squad, Astana. The time that they're looking for at the third time check, if Armstrong is trying to get the yellow jersey, is 37 minutes and 33 seconds. And I think they've still got the firepower to do that.
Well, the clock has gone by 37 minutes, 18 seconds and counting, so that it's going to be pretty tight here. And I'm wondering if they're slowing down just a little bit in favour of Garmin. So they're going to have to push on. Of course, they're really comparing themselves with the time of Saxo Bank, as I see there Alberto Contador quickly grabbing a bottle and a drink, and he might well throw it off at this moment in time. The clock must be dead. There is the time check. We haven't come up with a time check. Gosh, that's annoying. We'll get it very, very quickly when it does come up on our computer.
My guess is it was 37.43 roughly, but I'm not sure, because
37.32, Paul, is what it was, and that has put them in 32, 17 seconds better than Garmin.
But it also puts Lance Armstrong into a yellow jersey position by a single second at 10 kilometres to go to the finish.
Unbelievable. There we are, 37.32. Astana, best time. These are the final times at this checkpoint. Garmin is in second place. The importance, Saxo Bank, 41 seconds. How far behind was Lance Armstrong last night, Paul?
40 seconds.
We have now switched down to the finishing line as Team Columbia High Road, who have been gaining all of the time, Paul, and it's Mark Cavendish who's trying to drag his team to the line here.
Dragging his team up to the line. Just behind him is Big George Hincapie, world champion, Bert Grabscher, Mick Rogers, Australian time trial champion, Kim Kirken, Luxembourg time trial champion. They're trying to see whether or not they can slot into the top 4 or 5. They were one of the pre-race favourites for this discipline.
This has been a real tough ride for them. They've hit the line, they've improved all of the time, but they'll have to settle the 4th, and it'll be 5th, I'm afraid, when the time is known from Astana.
Cavendish looking over his shoulder there at George Hincapie. Grabsch is gritting his teeth there after what has been a very difficult ride for these guys from Colombia, but they've already got an awful amount of success out of the Tour de France.
The Astana team are now in between the crowd barriers here, but the crowd is waiting down at the finishing line. This is the last difficult approach to the finish. They're getting round safely, yes. Popovic has gone, 6 riders are left. They can afford to lose one more. It is 1 kilometre to go, and they have 1 minute and 14 seconds to do it. That must be easy.
It's not that easy. You'd normally cover the final kilometre at a speed of around about 1 minute and 10 seconds, but it climbs up to the finishing line here, and it is very difficult indeed. Armstrong, number 22, straight onto the front, right onto his wheel is Alberto Contador. Getting onto the back there of Andreas Kloden, 23, is Levi Leipheimer. They're into the finishing straight. A reminder, they need to finish inside of 46 minutes and 29 seconds if Armstrong is going to grab the yellow jersey.
Well, the time of Garmin Slipstream, the best time is 46.47, and we haven't hit 46 yet. And Armstrong, so familiar of 4 years ago when he was bringing his team to victory in the team time trial. Look at that now, Alberto Contador puts his head down. These guys aren't enemies at all, as people have tried to indicate. It's the team that counts. A massive piece of work by Contador. Even Armstrong at last appears human. He's gritting his teeth as they drive up now, 46.29. They've got to do it. They need to kick very, very hard here, and they've done it by a matter of, oh my goodness me, 46.29. They have done it, Paul, but we're going to go to a count back as to who wears yellow.
It is extremely close, and it'll go down, Phil, probably go down to the tenths of a second.
10 kilometres to go, 1:18. These 6 riders are going to think with only 6 miles left to ride, they have a chance. There's the official gap. It says 1:20 there. It's come down, we think, to 1:17, but that's by the by. 3 seconds won't matter. Can they hold off the field, spoil the sprinters? Well, if nobody gets in and helps Team Columbia win or lose for Mark Cavendish, they won't have a chance either.
Well, this is not the ideal terrain for that leading group of 6 now, because it's a long, straight, open road, and the guys doing the pacemaking at the front can judge the amount of effort that they have to put in to catch those 6. But strangely enough, it's the team of Agri-Toubel. They've got a sprinter too, Romain Felu.
It's a very interesting situation. It's a good scenario now. It is really touch and go.
It is, and what I like to see is the fact that these riders have still got plenty of determination. They've still got the ability to keep those pedals ticking over, keep the pace high at around about 50 kilometres an hour. And nobody really is shirking at all the job that has to be done at the front end of the main field. Well, they may well survive. Tête de la course, the front end of the bike race for the 6 leaders who've led this race, Phil, since the very first kilometre.
Jeslan, Hutrovic is up there, Sapper, Ignatiev, Timur, Voeckler. Those are the boys who have been stars since the 12th kilometre out today. An awful long ride. If they were to succeed, they would have led the race for 184 kilometres. Sometimes the Peloton get it wrong, and now there's an attack. That's causing. Now look at Voeckler, jumps on the wheels. That rider seemed to be tired. Don't believe it.
Well, he hasn't been able to get onto the slipstream. It was Ignatiev who went off the front there, and he's a great track rider. He's read this to perfection, but this is not so good for the group, because if it all comes back together now, Phil, they're going to lose their momentum.
Well, did you see the way Hutrovic tried to grab the wheel of Jeslan? He almost sandwiched poor old Thomas Voeckler over the side of the crash barrier. Right, well, they've got to go straight back into a working rhythm. If they start to slow, the bunch will close. It's 62 seconds now, but there is still a chance. They're going by the 6 kilometre banner. And another attack coming in again. It's Ignatiev, and Hutrovic recognises that and tries to reach him.
Well, that's a great move by the man from Katusha. They need to get straight onto his wheel if they want to survive. And there you can see the response of a very good professional bike rider. Thomas Voeckler has seen this as being extremely dangerous. He's jumping across the gap there. He will come just up to the wheel of Mikhail Ignatiev and sit there. But what this does, this acceleration and deceleration, it takes down the overall average speed of the breakaway group, while behind, Phil, the main field will still be slogging along at 55 kilometres an hour. But as they approach 5 kilometres to go, it is still the 1 minute mark.
They have lost 1 second in half a kilometre. That's not quick enough, Paul.
It's not quick enough. They need now to shave off 12 seconds for every kilometre of the race remaining, and that means they're going to have to be charging into the finishing straight at around about 60 kilometres or so an hour behind them.
Well, Thomas Voeckler takes a final drink. Is the bottle off? No, he's going to keep one for when he finishes. And now we know that Mikhail Ignatieff is looking for the victory here. He started out life as a World Junior Time Trial champion. He had that title for 2 years between 2002 and 2003. We know he's got good speed in those young legs. He's only 24 years of age. Here he comes leading up. Hushovd again. 5 kilometres to go, 58 seconds. Watch how that time drops between 5 and 4, and they've gone up to a minute. They're actually starting to pull away. I do believe it's curtains for the sprinters.
Well, Thomas Voeckler there is waiting for the time to try and pop a move off the front end of this group. Watch out for Hushovd there, because he has got a great sprint. I think Ignatieff, Phil, is not feeling very confident. Look at the move there by Voeckler in the blue shorts.
It's a tester. I said he would go about 2 kilometres out. He's proved me wrong. This is the first attack by Thomas Voeckler. They're looking at each other. Timmer looks back. Ignatieff is tired from his tacks. Hushovd is just following wheels. This is a great crafty move by Thomas Voeckler. He's a great tactician. He may have worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. He's never won a stage.
Well, he's trying to get that stage victory here this afternoon. He knows exactly how fast the main field can go on the run in towards the finish, and I think he's broken the back of this 3-man chase group, but he's got to keep going to hold off the front end of the main field, who I think you're right, Phil, may well have completely and utterly messed up their timing this afternoon.
Thomas Voeckler, who is the shrewdest tactician, he's ridden 7 Tours de France rather, and he's worn the yellow jersey.
He will find a little bit of extra energy in those legs of his this afternoon, because he will now be starting to dream about a stage victory in the Tour de France. Every time he slows down, he gets out of the saddle to battle with his machine to keep those pedals going over in the biggest gear that he's got. Another move coming at the back again. It looks like it's Ignatieff trying to come across the gap.
And that looks like Anthony Jeslan trying to bridge across to him there at the moment. Well,
oh, this is Timmer.
It's Timmer who's got. Oh, it's a skill rider. Yes, it's Timmer. Timmer. There's Timmer. Can't get his name right after all this time. Albert Timmer trying to get across to the leaders here.
This man now has made his move. He has to give everything he's got, looking over his shoulder, trying to judge whether or not anybody's coming back. When you're in a situation like this, the body is screaming out for a little bit of respite, but you know you've got to push it that little bit further forward. Not a good sign, not good for the morale, Phil, when you see them pulling their cars out of the gap there, because it makes you wonder, am I going to survive? Have I got enough advantage? And Albert Timmer here is looking straight up the road at the back wheel of Thomas Voeckler.
2 kilometres to go. He's got to have done this, but it's not a question of whether he wins or the guy coming up behind. The peloton can't possibly get back now. This has been a show of defiance today, and when they get there, 184 kilometres in front. There are easier ways to win stages of the Tour de France.
Well, he's still got to battle, because Timmer has got the advantage of looking at Thomas Voeckler a little bit further up the road, and he's judging his effort of trying to pull himself back to the Frenchman's wheel before the finish. He's only about 5 or 6 seconds behind him, and Voeckler knows that. He looks around every now and again, and he's trying to find out whether he's got enough energy to hold off the return of the Dutchman.
Well, dare I remind you that Voeckler is French. They don't win many stages of the Tour de France. Really, you shouldn't be looking round, Thomas. You're the bike race right now as he continues to drive on down the barriers here in Perpignan. We're going to see the magic red kite in the sky. That will give him the fillip he wants, I think, to head for home.
And that's where he's looking for. You can just see that red banner across the road there. Once he goes underneath that banner, that was the indication he's got 1,000 metres left to go to the finish. He's not completely confident about this, because he keeps looking over his shoulder. He's wondering whether he's got the strength to survive here. And for the skill rider, just a little bit further back, Phil, he's trying to claw his way back to Thomas Voeckler down these big, massive boulevards.
900 metres to the finish of this stage of the Tour de France. Under the killer, he's got it, Paul. There's a 10-second gap to 1 kilometre to go. Now for Thomas Voeckler, who has ridden his 7 Tours de France. At last he's going to get a crack at winning a stage. In 2004, he finished 18th in this race, and he wore the yellow jersey for 10 days. He went from a total unknown in the sport to an absolute French cycling hero. He's never gone back to approach a high finish, but today he shakes his head. He is going to have the proudest moment of his career, I guess, since he wore yellow, because he's going to win a stage of the Tour de France. They're not going to catch him now, and what a way to do it. 184 kilometres in the lead for the Frenchman in Perpignan. Look, he does not believe this. He's going to enjoy the moment. Looks over his shoulder. He can cruise now. There's a big race to second place. You can just salute the crowd. It's all yours, Thomas.
Well, that was a great move by him. They all survived. There's the main field and not far behind. They won't catch this man, Thomas Voeckler, who gets the first victory that he's wanted in a stage of the Tour de France after a long day in the saddle.
Oh, and they're all over the breakaway, right on the line as well.
Well, Cavendish leading the front end of the main field home, but I tell you what, that has been a battle this afternoon. All of the major contenders, though, are in the main field. Lance Armstrong, Fabian Cancellara, Alberto Contador, they're all there, but today it's a French story come true. Well, Chiruka has joined the group. That makes now a four-man leading group, and he's come straight across there, and he's obviously very keen to try and build on the advantage that these riders have, and that's the reason why he's jumped across the gap here.
Absolutely. Well, sadly, at 30.7 kilometres in the finish, we're now inside the minute, 55 seconds. So
Crash.
There is a crash on the top end of that roundabout, and these are the fears because the roads are so slippery.
Well, this is what it's like in Spain. There's a Garmin rider gone down there. There's a rider from Colombia, HCT, and there's a rider in a white jersey. Now, let's just have a look at exactly where that happened. Now, we're just going around that corner, and you see it's that white line. I mentioned it earlier, Phil. Those white lines are very, very dangerous. Just trying to see who went down there. There's obviously a rider from Colombia has gone down pretty hard. Just looking over to the right-hand side, there's a Garmin rider, and the Garmin rider there in fact is number 53, and that's Tyler Farah, and he was the sprinter for that squad. The other man who looks as if he's pretty nastily cut up there is Mickey Rogers, wearing number 79. The doctor's up alongside him. Seems as if he's in a bit of pain there, Mick Rogers, and also Heinrich Hausler, number 5, the man we were talking about just a few moments ago as the rider likely to be leading out Thor Hushovd into the sprint. Now this is a move by David Millar. Millar all of a sudden has decided that at 50 seconds advantage he's going to see whether he can go it alone.
Well, as we leave behind the sad sight there of Michael Rogers, Paul, we've now seen David Millar launch an attack. It's a desperate move, this. He knows the gap has come into the last 50 seconds. I think he's got to go and use his great time trialing ability to hold the field off.
Well, he obviously felt that the guys in the group with him were starting to lose their impetus, and this was probably the right time for him to have a crack at trying to get himself the victory. It was an ideal move as well because he attacked them from the back. He caught them unawares, and all of a sudden, once you've got the gap, everyone starts to look and says, well, who's going to be the first to move to try and chase down the Scot?
I think he's had to do this. He sensed the tiring of the rest of the riders. He knows that the breakaway is coming. He might or might not be aware of the crash which we just saw, which included Heinrich Hausler, and I thought Tony Martin was down there as well, but we didn't see him get back up. But the sadness is Michael Rogers, who crashed out of the last tour he rode here 2 years ago in the Alps over the mountain, looks as though he may be out again here, which I think is terribly unlucky for the Colombia HTC rider. But right now, this rider, David Millar, trying to win for the other American team in the race, Garmin Slipstream.
Well, it's coming down still quite steadily. It's 45 seconds, the time gap for David Millar, but now he's completely on his own. He can give everything that he's got in his legs now to try and survive over these last 27 kilometres. In about 2 kilometres time, Phil, he'll be starting this very long drag, and that may well be where he should be able to build on that advantage, because the teams of the sprinters who are working behind are normally not that good at going uphill fast. Millar is still extending his advantage over the front end of the peloton, which I find quite amazing. He's stretched his gap out to 1 minute and 12 seconds.
Well, the bunch actually have the 2 in sight. There they are. There's not a lot. They're going back into the pack for sure. Then the bunch will settle down to concentrate on catching David Millar. Might be a little bit more difficult here, but it is unfortunately for Millar, the team of Milram, who have launched the charge. Milram with Gerald Cholik have a very good finisher on a strong man's finish, and we have a 2 kilometre climb to the line.
Well, it's come inside that magical 107 for David Millar to 105, but he's probably not really concerning himself, Phil, with the chance of getting the yellow jersey here. He's looking for individual glory and trying to get himself the stage victory. There's no real organised chase at the front end of that peloton, which lends me to believe that maybe the sprinters once again are going to get robbed of their chance of glory.
Remy Porol goes off our camera to the right, Chiruka to the left. Are back in the peloton now as Case Dupont also starts to lift the speed here. Of course, the Spanish are going to go well. There is David Millar in sight of 10 kilometres to go as he drives a course dead centre down the road to a corridor of people here who will no doubt be shouting his name as well. Terrific crowds as the Tour de France races to Barcelona, the furthest south it's ever been in Spain.
Well, it's inside of 10 kilometres to go now for David Millar, and it's almost a minute and 5 seconds. A little bit of urgency you can see at the front end of the pack. The Catalan flags are very high in the sky. The sun is starting to peep through, but it's not going to dry the roads here in the heart of Barcelona.
Well, it is not as torrentially raining as it was. That's one blessing in disguise. And we've no further news at all on the fate of Michael Rogers, but I don't think he rejoined the field. Of that we are pretty sure. That's really bad luck for the Australian. But meanwhile, at the front, David Millar now preoccupied to deliver a win. There's so many people want to win here. They're trying to deliver their Spanish riders as well. That's why Rabobank are on the front now. They have got just the man for the job in Oscar Freire. If they can get him to the line in Barcelona first, they'd be saying job done today.
Well, it's more than a minute. I just timed it myself there at 1:02, and it was Juan Antonio Fletcher was doing all of the pacemaking on the front end of the field. David Millar now knows he's got to push himself into the red zone. We talk about the red zone as the level where your heart is right up at the maximum that it can operate, round about 95% of your maximum heart rate, and he's got to keep his heart rate right up there now. For there's a crash at the back,
and that is the Japanese rider who's gone down there nearest camera, which is rather sad for B-Box, because that's Yukika Arashiro, and there, oh my goodness me. Well, this is going to disrupt the chase, I think, now. It was on a left-hand bend on the white line.
Well, that was because of the white line once again. That crash happened.
Rabobank involved, Paul.
Rabobank are not having their best Tour de France this year. That was Yukiya Arashiro there from B-Box Boy Telecom, who's gone down pretty nastily. Dr. Port in the white shirt there, he's coming along to check on everybody, but that will probably disrupt the chase a fraction.
Well, this is Lawrence Ten Dam, who's straightening the mess out. Now, that's happened outside the rules at 3 kilometres to go, so those riders will lose time for that crash. As the mechanics get on the job in hand, the rider at the front just continue to drive here. Now, has this disrupted the chase? It doesn't look like it at the moment.
No, that crash happened probably 3/4 of a way down the main field, which is why, once again, I've always said you've got to ride up at the front, the first 25%. You might just notice popping in there now and again, Phil, is the green jersey of Mark Cavendish. Cavendish now will be starting to lick his lips, which is why this team has come to the front. There is a big split in the field, though, Phil, because of that accident, and I wonder if any of the big leaders have been caught out. I just saw Levi Leipheimer, so I can only presume that Lance Armstrong is there, and Alberto Contador. The yellow jersey is there as well of Fabian Cancellara.
This is yet another critical end to a stage of the Tour de France. Day after day, it really does bite the bullet in the last few kilometres. They're trying to catch up with David Millar, but they're also trying to drop those guys who've been delayed in the accident. Now, Millar has got no more than 10.5 minutes to ride. That's an awful, awful long time when you're on your own and you're in the red zone. That's the limit of your ability. We are heading to the climb. We go right across this beautiful city, and then we start the climb up to the Olympic Stadium.
Well, that's where it's going to really start to bite for David Millar. He will be counting away at those kilometres as he goes round this corner. It's 7 kilometres to go to the finish. There is the Arc de Triomphe that Barcelona has just in the right-hand side there, but Millar goes charging by, hoping that this is going to be an arch of triumph for him as well. But he's still got to face up to that very difficult 2-kilometre ascent up to the end. And he's certainly not weakening as a rider, Phil. It's up to them. Another crash has gone down.
Goodness gracious me. Cofidis are now piling up, as Euskaltel rider is also.
Bonen is on the ground there, Phil, right in the middle, the champion of Belgium.
Yep, that is Bonen sat in. There's a little replay. Well, we've lost a little bit, but that's Bonen who's gone down. He was a candidate for victory today, and he really has seen the wrong side of the Tour de France this year. It's been a rough ride for him. He won the green jersey last time he was in this race. Hasn't scored a single point this year because he's never been in at the kill.
Well, Bonen is hurt, but he's not going to be out. He's going to get up there. He's going to wait for the mechanics to come up alongside him, and he's going to ride himself down towards the finish line. This has been a dramatic ride into Barcelona. Let's have a look at that one more time. It was Bonen who went down first, and again, it was on those white strips across the road, extremely slippery in conditions like this.
Well, that's delayed the tail of the chase here. Gerard Porte, the doc, is having a busy last few kilometres of the race. Bonham will not worry about losing time. He's not here to win the Tour de France. He's here to win stages. And meanwhile at the front, the riders just get on with the job in hand here. Gerard Chorok's team are still driving at the front. Millar is down to 41 seconds, 40 as we speak. Just 6 kilometres to go, 3.5 miles. The last 2 kilometres are up a hill.
Phil, there are not many riders left in the front part of this main field, and there's not very many riders left to do the chase making behind David Millar, who's still holding on to a 41-second advantage. Round the corner, he will come and see another banner indicating to him 5 kilometres to go, but I have to say, David, just keep a little bit back in the gas tank there, because the last 2 kilometres climb right the way up to the summit of the climb of Montjuïc.
Generous applause there from the Spanish crowd for the Belgian champion. He tries to refine himself here. I think he's hurt himself, and he's now just going to ride to the finish. Team car comes and questions the situation with him. We are now cutting our way across one of the world's busiest cities. You won't believe the traffic jams here. We are now heading up towards the finish on beautiful closed roads, and Millar is doing one of the best rides of his life. 5 kilometres to go. There is the banner. Millar is clear by 37 seconds. It's a perfect road for a time trialist, long and straight. Unfortunately, we go across the square at the bottom, turn right and start this short climb to the line.
Well, the organisation and the panic now coming from the teams of the sprinters who are whipping it up. Milram obviously think that their man Gerard Cholek has got a chance to win, but I think Columbia High Road HTC also believe that Mark Cavendish can win, because he is still in this group. So too there is Lance Armstrong, the overall leader. Fabian Cancellara is safely in the front part of this split, but I wonder, Phil, this afternoon, who has been caught out by these crashes, because there will be some.
31 seconds is the gap. Millar is the loneliest man in Europe at the moment, as the whole field is challenging him for a win in the Tour de France. He's holding them, but only just. 30 seconds the lead, 4.21 kilometres to go.
Well, Millar is not weakening. He's keeping his pace nice and steady. He's picking his way around these corners, whereas behind it's absolute turmoil and chaos in the peloton, which is now probably down to only about 50 to 55 men. But there are a number of teams organising the chase, and if we come across to Spain for the Tour de France, just check out that crowd at the side of the road. They are enjoying this bike race. They want a Spanish winner, but they're welcoming here a man from Great Britain.
It's a long time since the Tour de France has come to Barcelona, and it doesn't pierce any further south into this country than this city. The boys behind are still wondering, how on earth is one man stopping us catching up? Where is he finding the speed from to hold us all off?
When you're in the front of a bike race like that, though, and when you've got the possibility of winning a stage in the Tour de France, you can find that little bit more inner strength. This is Juan Antonio Fletcher popping through a little bit further back. The other rider from Rabobank in the orange jersey there will be Oscar Freire, and they will be looking around every now and again to see whether they can spot the shape of David Millar, and that should be a clean gap between the front end of the main field and Millar now, because it's down to 25 seconds.
25 seconds. He lost, what, 7 seconds in the kilometre. That'll do nicely. If he keeps losing at that rate, he will win. But unfortunately, we've got the uphill section here, and Millar's legs are going to burn like a bonfire when he turns onto the slopes of the ride up Montjuïc to Olympic Stadium. If it's a matter of cheers that work, he's getting plenty of those now, because everybody loves an attacker.
2.8 kilometres, 22 seconds. The main field are still charging behind David Millar. He hasn't even looked back once, Phil. He knows that he dare not look back. He just needs to keep concentrated on the job in hand. Every now and again he puts his head down. That's to try and make him feel a little bit more aerodynamic, to make sure that he keeps the pressure nice and high. Mark Cavendish is still in there with a chance, because he's sitting in the middle of that group in around about 15th place.
As we pull back, there looks to be about maybe 60, 70 riders in this group here, but nobody else in the camera lens as we swung back to the front here. Quick Step still working. They don't know they've lost their big man in Tom Bonham, possibly. Rabobank are on the front now as they try to deliver Oscar Freire into the final couple of kilometres. 20 seconds out of the saddle is David Millar. 2.2 kilometres. We're about to start the climb.
I noticed Pipo Pozzato from Team Katusha was one of the riders who hadn't been involved in a crash. He was riding very close to the front end of the main field as well, just looking round the corners. Here is the big wide boulevard, and once he turns off this boulevard to the right-hand side, that is when the climb up to the finish field begins.
This is Barcelona showing you its best face now, apart from the weather. This is a beautiful city, empty for the Tour de France of traffic, and it's full of people here cheering a Scottish rider, David Millar. It's a right turn, then the climb starts. They're down there, the only men that can beat Millar. Everybody else is out of it.
Well, there's not many men in that group who can beat Millar. He takes a wide berth around that corner, and then he's going to start to get out of the saddle and feel the pain starting to dig in deep for the final time, because he's on the final ascent up to the finish. It's not very much at all. It's down to just 8 seconds with 1.6 kilometres to go, and there's still a lot of dedicated sprinters still in that group who want their men to pull this man back into the fold.
He's relying heavily now on the psychological factor. Who will make the move that will finish him off? Will they hesitate? Just a couple of seconds is all they need. Kurt Atle Arvesen, the champion of Norway, trying to lead, in fact, the race leader in yellow, Fabian Cancellara. It's a strong man's finish here, and there's an awful lot of strong men just on the sharp end right now.
Gerard Schleck moving up into second position, and there is David Millar, and he's about to get pulled back into the fold within 1.2 kilometres to go to the finish. It's Jaroslav Popovic taking over control at the front end of the main field. This is going to be a strong man's finish.
It has become a battle of strongmen in the end. 26 kilometres of desperation from Millar here. I saw Tony Martin right centre there, centre right at the moment, as now everybody will believe they can make it. But Astana have got a lot of riders there. Now remember that Lance Armstrong and Fabian Cancellara are equal on time. Because it's an uphill finish, there could be a separate time here. They've got to mark each other.
They're inside of the final kilometre. Tony Martin's doing the turn at the front end for his men, and he may well be trying to set something up for Kim Kirken, because this is the kind of finish that could suit Kim Kirken. I'm looking for the green jersey of Mark Cavendish. It's a long way down there, Phil. I'm not sure that it's going to be a Cavendish win this afternoon. Oscar Freire is up there into third position. He's looking very good. Not too far away in fifth position is Gerard Schleck, and Thor Hushovd is also hovering in there in fourth.
This is going to be a huge lead out here by Tony May, because he's the man driving at the front, with Inigo Cuesta gritting his teeth in the background there. As Kees de Paan tried to get on the action, so too do the Liquigas riders. Schleck is there, and Oscar Freire is poised. The rider in the orange jersey, the 3-time world champion. He's Spanish, and Cadel Evans also trying to break in on the action. And there looks like Roman Ferrier is having a dig on the right. Is he going to steal it on the line?
Well, there you can see Oscar Freire looking over his shoulder. You can see the big face of Thor Hushovd. They're waiting for the final moment to kick, but it looks as if Ferrier went just a little bit too early there, Phil.
And there's a move on the far right of the road here, and I don't know if Freire is going to come out of third wheel and take it. Even Cadel Evans is trying to make something here. Now Freire goes, and it is Thor Hushovd who's going to challenge him for the line. Freire himself, he's Spanish. Hushovd, though, is the strong man, and it's Thor Hushovd who gets it. Oscar Freire will be in second place, and that was an incredible finish by a bunch of strong men. But take your hat off to David Millar. He's the most aggressive rider of the day, and what a great ride.
Well, it looks like it was a big lead out there, Phil, from Pipo Pozzato over on the left-hand side. The Italian national champion Freire started to go, but his legs died here as Thor Hushovd comes straight over the top there to prove once again why they call him the God of Thunder. He gets the victory here this afternoon for Cervelo Test Team on a finish which absolutely suited him.